So I was listening to the radio today and they were putting together a list of like 65 things that are only Canadian. And one of them was that kids puppet commercial. Don't you put it in your mouth.
Oh, yeah. Don't you put it in your mouth.
Don't stuff it in your face.
Don't stuff it in your face.
So it might look good to eat.
Though it might look good to eat.
Like a muffin or a beet.
Like a muffin or a beet.
If you don't know just what it is, remember, boys and girls, don't put it in your mouth. Ick.
Oh, so many dirty jokes come from that commercial.
How do some couples continuously elevate their passion? Is there truly only one perfect person for us? Or maybe what we practice and how we think will ultimately nurture or destroy a relationship? Crank up the volume while we dive into the depths of love, passion, and sex to uncover simple concepts that will both surprise you and transform your life forever. Welcome to Intimacy Exposed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Intimacy Exposed. I'm your host, Crystal.
And co-host John, ready to rock and roll for another episode.
I love that you're describing it like that because we're talking about kids. You're like, woo, we're wild and crazy.
Going to bed at 10 o'clock tonight. Stayed up late.
But we're in bed at 9:30 and we're going to read for half an hour.
It's true.
Yeah, that's okay. That's where all the snuggling happens.
For the listeners out there that still here. This is a real no, this is a real story. Okay, I'm 35. Crystal is a little older than
Don't
me.
even go there.
Just a little older than me.
Like 6 months.
It like a fine wine, just aging gracefully, beautiful. Well, she is actually.
Yeah, we did just talk about how you have more wrinkles than me.
And gray hairs.
Yes.
But where was I? Okay, so I remember now. So I have a family member, him and his wife. They're our age. We get together once every few months kind of thing. And they still party hard and stay up late like they're 18 years old. And I, honest to God, I look at them and I'm like, how are you functioning? Like when we go to their house, we're probably up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like gasping, like struggling, like you know when you're falling asleep at the wheel and you're like, okay, I got to pull over. So you're slapping yourself in the face. You're trying to sing songs. You're rolling down the window in the middle of winter.
We actually talk about it for days before we go. We're like, okay, how are we going to do this? What strategies are we going to come up with so we can stay up past midnight?
Anyway, I have no idea where we're going with that. But
I do feel like your family member, like him and his wife, they're actually going to explode into and like spontaneously combust one day. I just don't think that you can do that long term.
But they've been doing it for 20 years almost.
No, here is the kicker. With 3 kids.
And a dog and a pig and another dog, 2 other dogs.
Maybe some chickens. They come and go.
Ducks.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know what? Great topic. Great opener, because today we're talking about having kids. What? Do things really have to change?
Do they? You know, whether you've had children, maybe they're grown up and you're reflecting back. Maybe you're planning on having kids. Maybe you've decided not to have kids or you're on the fence about it. Or maybe you just had children or you're pregnant right now and you're not really sure what to expect. Well, we've just gone through a 9-month journey with our beautiful son. So we've got some fresh intel and perspective that we didn't have a year ago.
Coming straight to you.
Yeah, and some of this will not be surprising. You know, parents out there will shake their head yes. They'll laugh a little bit. They might cry.
I think you nod yes. You shake no, right?
Okay, I'll go with that.
So you'll nod.
Yeah.
You'll agree. What we're saying is like totally mainstream, and I can't believe you guys didn't know this before. But
some of you out there, if you're open-minded and a little bit humble, you might say, I've never heard that, or maybe not that way, or that kind of sounds good. I might apply that to my own life. And this is not a recommendation that you should do what we say. This is a recommendation that you listen to people who have just gone through something and who are very in tune with themselves because they make a lot of mistakes. And they try to capture those mistakes live on the air to improve the lives of other people. That's all. And if you choose not to, no worries. We wish you all the best on your journey. We're not saying that what we have to offer is the only solution and the only way. It's just our opinion, our point of view from our journey.
Mm-hmm. And this in no way, shape, or form is to try to convince anyone that you should have kids or that this is a component that you should be incorporating into your life, because it's completely personal. You really have to really, I would suggest that you really want children if you're going to have them, and, you know, make sure that you're on the same page as your partner. And that's just a real personal conversation you guys are going to have together.
But I think it's easy to want to have children in this day and age, because we live in such a judgment-free society where everybody accepts one another and they love and support one another, and nobody criticizes, you know, people's point of view on religion or politics or sex, and nobody gets bent out of shape on social.
John, it's 2020. You're saying that nobody judges and criticizes?
Oh, I thought it was 1920. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I got
You're
my
so ridiculous.
I got my decades mixed up here.
Centuries almost.
Yeah, centuries.
Yeah.
I was Crystal was awash in judgment. I think I've mentioned this actually on a previous episode months ago. Being the man, being the husband, being the father, you know, obviously I had my role to play in getting her pregnant. But after that, a lot of it is just support, love her, be patient, gracefulness. How can I make her journey, you know, easier? And just kind of reflect on my own journey as she's going through it, and kind of like what life is going to be like, and what do I want to be as a father, and how am I going to support her as a husband? And what I didn't expect and what I didn't even think about, you know, we've got a lot of loving, good people in our lives, but the amount of judgment, and not like negative judgment, like, you know, you are a horrible human, how could you think about having a child? But the amount of opinions that people impressed upon us, but more specifically Crystal, because at this point I'm just a sperm donor, and I'm allowed to kind of, no, seriously, I mean, this is, we had many get-togethers and family get-togethers and friend get-togethers, and, you know, on airplanes, in airports, in coffee shops, like random people too. And it's almost like I didn't exist. So I had this great perspective of just being able to sit and stand beside her and just look and observe as a third party.
And just absorb the judgment that was bouncing off of me.
Yeah, and it was quite overwhelming that people you love and people that you don't know, you've never met, are sitting there not giving like subtle recommendations based on experience. It's one thing to be like, hey, mom, hey, dad, can I get some feedback? Can I get some help? Or, you know, hey, sis, I know that you just had a kid, so what do you think about this? Or
even, hey, are you guys going to do this? Because we did this and we had such good luck. Like, that's actually quite inviting. Please tell me, share.
Yeah.
But not really.
So it's not meant to scare you, more or less just prepare you that you might be in for a bit of a ride that you didn't expect. I definitely was, you know, and we handled it very gracefully because we talk a lot, we communicate a lot, and we didn't hold anybody to their judgment. It's not like we changed our opinion on people. It was surprising, and because it was so widespread, I have a feeling that actually most of it was done out of love, but the way it was conveyed was not. So if you know that you're the kind of person that does this, just understand that when people are receiving it, they might not be receiving it the way that you want to project it, because I'm sure it's done out of, you know, hey, I want to save you some struggles, some tips, some money, some time. But nobody actually ever said that. It was more just like, hey, do this.
You know what? You could ask my mother. Since I was like the age of 1, I do not like being told what to do. John knows this very well as well.
Say what?
What? Yeah, no, I don't like being told what to do. So that was hard for me.
But awesome, because it allowed us an opportunity to also absorb, hey, we didn't like this. So when our friends and family have children, guess what we're not going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So you can turn a challenge into an opportunity. Don't look at it as like a pain or a struggle you have to go through. Just understand that take what you want, leave the rest, and be very mindful and respectful that you may not have any idea what those people are going through. You don't know their journey intimately.
So being a parent.
Yeah.
We walked in to this methodically. We've been planning on having a family for a long time. We've been, well, pretty much since we got married, but started to go back to school almost, this summer that we got married, I went back to school, and that was where I spent for the next 5 years. And it definitely went through my mind, and we had a few conversations questioning whether we actually wanted to have children. We knew we wanted to have kids. We knew we wanted to have a family. But, when you're so in love with where you're at in life and who you're spending your life with, to know that you're going to enter this area, this new trajectory of your relationship, and it's going to change everything. Or is it?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, no, and it is a good question. Like, maybe having children isn't for everybody. Even before I met Crystal, even when I was in long-term relationships that I was unhappy in, what never changed is I knew I wanted a family. I didn't even know why, to be perfectly honest. It's not because somebody told me. I don't know. It just always kind of sat with me, resonated with me, and felt right. Never did I think I was never going to not have a child. I actually thought I'd probably not have a happy relationship more than I would not have a child. And then I met Crystal, and that all changed, and it's been a much different journey and amazing. But you do take a look at your life, and you kind of just put it into perspective and ask yourself questions, because it's a journey that if you're a new parent, you don't know. And maybe out there, maybe for some of you out there, you've come from a big family, so you've been around children a long time, and maybe you have a little different perspective than we did. Crystal had a lot of nephews and nieces, and I didn't, so I was kind of naive and going into this with blinders on, and I didn't want to let it change my life, but I did question at times, like, do I want to have kids? Like, Crystal and I travel a lot. We travel on average about 2.5, 3 months a year out of town, out of country. And that's a significant portion of time. And, were we ready to give it up? We're very adventurous. And, I don't know. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to give that up. I get so much joy and passion from fly fishing, from mountain running, from climbing, from, just traveling and soaking up different cultures. And I'm not much for like sitting on a beach. I can do it for maybe a few hours, a couple times, and that's about it. I want to be engaged and involved and down to a local market and walking around and meeting people and going to locals' houses and getting to know their family. And we both really crave that. But we did. We asked ourselves a lot of times, like, can we do this with a child? Is that a thing? Because we had no role models, right? We had nobody to give us permission. We had nobody to say, it's okay. Here's the path. We walked it. We created this journey.
Yeah, especially how we've spent the last, that we just got back recently from 65 days on the road traveling through South America. And honestly, it was very much like paving our own way. So many questions like, oh, you guys had the guts to do that. And it wasn't so much that we had the guts to do that. It's just that, we want to continue the adventures that we've always had, and that's such a big part of us. So yeah, it was interesting that if you don't have a role model in this area, you're kind of carving your own path.
Yeah. One thing I would urge everybody out there, whether you've had children, it's not too late to change and grow and be an exemplary model and role model, and whether you're thinking about having children or you're pregnant, always prioritize your long-term fulfillment, joy, and happiness above your child. And that's not to say that you have to choose one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game. But if you had to put them in an order of hierarchy, obviously any parent out there would give their life for their child. It's not saying that, but don't think you have to give up something because of your child. And I'll put this in a very easy example that probably most people out there will understand. If you're on a plane.
So this is an analogy.
No, it's an
you're
example.
trying to not say analogy.
It's an example.
Uh-huh. Okay.
The listeners out there appreciate examples. Maybe you could learn to appreciate an example.
I like analogies.
Okay, well, this is an analogy and an example. But if you're out there on a plane and you're about to take off and they go through their safety protocol and unanimously, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what airline, no matter what language, the same message is spoken. In case of an emergency or a low pressure environment, the cabin will deploy oxygen masks. And when those oxygen masks come down, you stuff it on your neighbor and your child and your wife and your husband, and you hold your breath as long as you can, and then you pass out and die from, right?
You're so dramatic.
No, you cram that thing on your own face, you selfish SOB. You are absolutely no good to anybody if you don't take care of yourself.
That's true.
You are not doing anybody any good, especially your children, by continuing forward on a path that you don't like, by working at a job that you hate, by selling your future short and cutting out your dreams for the sake of a family, for the sake of a child. I will say from experience, and I'm sure most parents will agree, you start to make decisions differently. You start to just look at things and say, which do I want more? There are only so many hours in a day and so much resources to go around at times. And you do make decisions, and you make quite a few of them, I'm sure, for the betterment of your child or your family instead of yourself. And this isn't a matter, again, of like one versus the other. You can have both of them. And we're here to say you have the permission. If you need somebody to blame, if you need somebody to say, well, I know somebody who's done this, they've said I can do it, it's okay, then I'm giving you permission right now. You can go out there and you can still have your Corvette or your Ferrari. You can have your vacation home in the mountains. You can travel. We've done it. Our son is 9 months old. He's been out of country 3 months, and he's been camping in our province or around Canada for another 2 months. Half of his life has been out of town, and we've had him literally on the peaks of volcanoes. We've had him on beaches. We've had him on airplanes. We've had him on golf carts, boats. We've had him on, I can't even imagine what now. It's just, we've had him camping in the backcountry. We've had him on rivers, strapped to us, literally strapped to us on a backpack or a carrier or whatever. He was bundled up 9 layers deep. You know, he looked like a little banana in his yellow rain suit that's waterproof.
He hates that thing.
He does hate that thing. And I believe it'll create a much different experience for his life and a much different experience for us, because we just weren't willing to compromise on what makes us truly happy. We've changed the way we travel. I mean, when we were in South America, I had grand plans of climbing another mountain. We've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and I really wanted to climb Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in South America. And that's a decision I made for myself, but it doesn't change the fact that we were still adventurous, and we figured out ways to do it. We went to this volcano in Chile called Mount Osorno. Why don't you tell them about that?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. We talked about it a little bit before, but we found some beautiful single track on the volcano to go running, because we love single track trail running. So, you know, we took turns, and like John was saying, there's a lot of things that you'll end up changing, adjusting, you know, changing your coordinates a little bit, but it doesn't mean that you can't still go and do it and seek out the adventure, or whatever adventure means to you. It doesn't mean you can't seek that out. Taking it back to I had the word in my head, Enampology. Example and analogy.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, now I get it. No, just to bring it back to that, you need to oxygenate yourself. You and your
Ooh, damn, you're getting all sciencey on me.
Putting that mask on, oxygenate yourself when you have a family. No matter what's going on in your life. If you've got an incredibly stressful job, lots going on, oxygenate yourself, because you are no good to anyone else unless you pump yourself up, unless you take care of yourself, unless you become the best version of yourself.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. This is not about changing who you are. Create a better version of yourself. You need a software upgrade. Okay? You're still running on Windows 95, and that's discontinued and it doesn't work anymore, and you need a newer version of yourself. There's nothing wrong with Windows 95. It's just not working in 2020. So, yeah, like she said, oxygenate yourself, and it doesn't have to be a 65-day trip to South America. For the men and women out there, you could take a 30-minute meditation time. You could just say, you know what? I do have a crazy job. It is extremely demanding, or whatever else. And, just give me this time. I want to center myself. I want to make sure I'm the best version of myself for my family. So maybe you sit in your car in the parking lot before you get into your house, and you spend 5 or 10 minutes meditating and just centering yourself, letting the day go. It doesn't matter what happened in court or in the OR or in the office. I don't care that I spilt coffee on a patient or a client. Sorry.
Well, I hope you're not spilling coffee on a patient in the OR, because that would just be inappropriate.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, everybody is on their own journey. And no matter what your job is, whether you think a janitorial position has no stress, or whether you think a CEO of a publicly traded company is the best job ever, and whatever your job is, you've got ups and downs, you've got your own journey. Don't let that crap creep into your household. It's too precious. Take 30 seconds, meditate, clear your head, write things down. Do a to-do list for the next day before you get out of your car, so that when you get in the house, you're present. You don't have to think about work. It's not stuck on your mind. Turn your phone on vibrate. Shut it off. Be there for your family.
Mm-hmm.
It can be the small things. Go for a little jog, do some push-ups, stretch, do a yoga class, just watch a little motivational video, dance, move your ass. Dancing feels so good. Don't worry about what people are going to judge you and think about you. Who cares?
But, all the things that John just listed, little 2 millimeter shifts. Take a part of your life that you bring stuff home from work and you're kind of grumpy. That's not just the way it is. That's the way you're choosing to be. So making a 2 little millimeter shift before you walk in the door can really change the entire household. So it's worth taking a look at those little things, and your family, regardless if it's just the two of you, maybe it's just the one of you, but your family, your household deserves the best.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I quite often hear that funds, money, income is generally, where everyone hits a wall where they think or they feel strongly that they can't go after their dreams or go after the things that they want to do. Even if it's you just want to take your kids to Disneyland, there are so many different ways, and we've got other episodes and we'll be expanding on more in the future, but there are so many ways that you can cut your spending, and one of them is definitely on your kids. Kids are expensive, but kids are not as expensive as you think that they need to be, especially when it comes to birthdays and stuff. Do they need 100 more presents? Maybe everyone who comes to their birthday party actually donates to a trip that they are going to go on for their 7th birthday, or something else like that. There's a lot of, ways of stepping off that beaten path that we're all following and do something different that really serves you and your family.
Yeah. I like the age that you chose, because obviously our 6-month-old son is not going to be like, Dad, Mom, I remember that time that we climbed that volcano. Mom, I remember that time that you caught the bigger trout than Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he probably will, because that happens quite a bit. But at 7, 10, 15, 18, are they going to remember and cherish an iPad? Or are they going to remember and cherish like that weekend in the mountains, or that time you went to Disneyland, or, whatever it is, right? It's the experiences, the time together, for sure. I mean, and that's not to say you can't have both, right? We're not saying you have to pick one or the other, but don't compromise on the life that you want. You deserve the life that you want, and you can have it and have a family.
The interesting part about the statement you just made is I do think that they are going to cherish that iPad a little bit more, but the impact that the latter will have on their life is far greater. They might think they cherish that iPad, but it's not ever going to get them the experience, the memories, the interactions, the culture exposure, the worldly view. They're not going to get any of that from those electronics. So, if it means sacrificing and making the decision that they don't get the upgraded whatsoever, and instead you guys go on a trip and go see the world and go do something that's maybe just not on your agenda right now, it's absolutely worth doing. I hope that you guys can get out and travel if you haven't already, and if you have, just to keep on going if you do decide to have children, or if you have recently have children or are planning in the future here. So to speak a little bit now, to change pace slightly, I wanted to speak a little bit about our experience, at least from my point of view. What I would call the most challenging part so far about having a child. Obviously, I can't speak to what John experienced because we had different experiences, but, there's a lot of, as we all know, there's hormonal changes, there's physical changes, there's, emotional changes. There's so many things that happen when you make this decision and you go through the motions and you do what we've done. But I'd say the most challenging part in the entire experience has been well, I'll kind of give it in a bit of an analogy or an example.
I
Are we
like it.
calling this now? John's mom explained this interesting little kind of analogy when I first met him. She always said, you know, Crystal, when you meet someone and you fall in love, you are on a path, and they're two separate paths, and they're side by side. And, you know, I have my hands out side by side right now. And she would move her hands back and forth like a swervy path. And she said, you know, sometimes your paths are going to be further apart. Sometimes they're going to come back together. And then, but for the most part, a good relationship, you're just going to kind of jive like you're skiing down the mountain side by side. And I loved that because it always kind of gave me this viewpoint, like a bird's eye view of, okay, are we a little further apart? Do we need to come back together? And it was just a nice kind of judge as to where we are. And when you have a baby, oh my goodness, your path, you're on your path with your partner and you're parallel and things are going great. And even though you made this decision, you decided to have a baby and you've decided to make all of these changes, it's like all of a sudden the path divides slightly. And, you know, mom's at home with the baby, you know, learning how to do all these things, and dad's going to work, and, you know, you don't really have as much conversation because your focus is on so many different things. And all of a sudden your paths divide slightly, and there's all of a sudden a major fork in the road, and you don't really realize it. But one path goes over and down a cliff and off, and they disappear. And then another one, you know, the other path goes into a creepy forest with caves and thorns and, you know, animals, and it's scary. And then shortly after, you're crossing paths again, and, you know, you're parallel for a while, and then next a huge boulder, you know, so you kind of get the point. You're constantly kind of evolving and having to adjust the path to bring it back to where you were before. If you were working on your relationship and you were parallel and you were jiving and you were in that kind of rhythm, I feel like this has been the most difficult part so far. And it does take a while, I would say, you know, from my own point of view, it's taken a little while to get back on that groove, but it's quite rewarding actually when we did get there. So on a different note, there are two people having two very different experiences once you decide to have a child and you go through these motions. And you know, I've just kind of described a little bit of mine, but I know John had a very different experience than me. And it comes along with, you know, an entire new set of skills and a new set of everything, really.
Yeah, I mean, my experience was from more of a, you know, a cheerleader, right? Like supporting and encouraging and helping out wherever I could. I think the biggest revelation that I had, and I don't know if this is because I'm a man or just because of me as an individual, but like I thought I loved my unborn child. I was excited for sure. I mean, I felt the baby kick. I was at all the appointments for the, you know, and I'm excited. It's coming. I see the room getting decorated and we're buying things and it's like, wow, this is real. I had no comprehension, none, zero of the amount of love that I would feel and exude when my son was born. The second I laid eyes on him, I just like everything changed. Everything changed and nothing changed, right? I was even, because we talked a lot about our plans and what do we do, and we got to set this up. We got to make sure we're still, you know, doing date nights and committing and communicating and still traveling, and we got to live the life that we want. So like I say, everything changed and nothing changed. I was even more recommitted and committed to what we wanted to do. But I was naive. I was so naive. Like you have to help me out here, but I'm pretty sure I was like, before he was born, I was like, oh yeah, you know, like, you know, in 6 months, we'll probably go away for a week or two and, you know, leave the kid with the parents or, you know, like a babysitter or something, be fine kind of thing. And
I don't care what anyone says. You should still be having a date night every Friday night. I don't care. You get a babysitter. I don't care if they were born on Thursday. You get a babysitter every date night. And it was interesting because shortly after he was born, we were like, no one can take care of him but us. Like it's an eye opener.
Well, I think it's because it's her first child, so we're both learning, and I definitely turned into a bit more. Crystal calls it Papa Bear. I turned into just more paternal. You know, I'm not like protective in an outward way, but I feel this innate sense of responsibility and like a deep-seated protection that I've never felt before. I mean, I love my wife. I would do anything for her. And I don't think I feel nearly the protection because she's a fully developed, intelligent, capable, independent person who can take care of herself and doesn't need me. We complement each other quite well, and we're better together than apart. But with him, it was just like an absolute eye opener. But it's funny because through the journey, if you're not communicating, you can easily start making assumptions about the other person. It's like, what the hell, man? Like, I'm the one going to work and busting my hump and doing all this and running around. And yeah, everything you're saying is valid. You've been working hard and trying to support the household and whatever you're doing, right? Whatever arrangement you guys have. And we had a bit of this discussion ourselves, right?
Yeah, it was a huge eye opener. And I'm so glad we had this discussion because, okay, so let me just set the stage. So John works from home. He has his own business, but he still needs to be absent. He still needs to be focused. And, so we've gotten into a good routine of just because he's in the basement working doesn't mean I go downstairs and ask him every little question that I might have. I try to kind of, give him his space. But after little guy was born, like there's, he would like take off and have to go and run some materials or something, or go and pick up a check. And, he was in and out of the house and doing his thing. And, I was starting, just to kind of grow these little feelings. And obviously, like at the time after you have a baby, there's emotions and there's so many things going on, and it's all new and it's a huge learning curve. So sometimes it's easy to let your emotions get the best of you. But I would think sometimes like, he doesn't understand. He gets to leave whenever he wants. There's no physical limitations. There's no emotional limitations. There's no, necessities for him to have to be here to feed the baby. And I just kind of got to this point where we had this conversation and I said, John, you don't get it. You get to leave the house anytime you want. You don't have to tell anyone to take care of the baby for you to leave for 10 minutes or half an hour or 2 hours. And then he gets back to me and he says,
well, and the funny thing about this conversation is I have a seasonal business. It's extremely busy. We start getting busy around April. We had our son almost the end of May. So I'm like full on busy, like committed, very committed, long days. We're working hard and I work from home. And at the same time, I'm also training for an ultra marathon. And that takes about 12 hours a week. It takes 12 hours a week, like regardless of what I'm doing. Maybe some weeks it's 10, maybe some weeks it's 14, but it's about 10 or 12 hours a week. So you compile all that and it's like an 80-hour, 90-hour work week between, training for an ultra marathon and trying to pick up some of the household stuff that she's not able to help with anymore, and running my business and growing the business. And we're still traveling. And she says to me, like, you just don't understand. Like, you get to leave whenever you want. You have nobody to, hold you back. You don't have to take this little beautiful bundle of joy with you. You can just be selfish and do what you need to do. And I'm like, you don't know what it's like. I have to leave the house. I have to go run for 3 hours. I want to sit here and cuddle him and cuddle you and make you dinner and make sure you're okay and take care of you. You don't get it. Like, you get to spend every day with him and just love him and nurture him and hold him. I want to hold him all day.
I think one of the things you even said was, no, you don't get it. I have to get up and leave the bedroom in the morning. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was the thing. Like, it's so I guess, having some grace and making sure that you're communicating these dialogues that are going on in your head, because you have no idea that what you're maybe resenting your partner for, there could be a complete flip side that you're not even seeing. And you're not, you could actually have a lot of understanding and grace with your partner if you guys actually were able to exchange that dialogue.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and it was challenging for me because, again, like, and this is the two-way street, right? And for me, like, I would go and I would run for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, and she'd send me photos of like her cuddled with our son, or our son sleeping tightly wrapped in a blanket. And here I am in the bloody rain. Literally, it rained more days last year where we're from than any year that I've been here for 35 years ever. It rained like, I think it was 72 days out of 100 and something. So there I am running in the friggin' rain, gone for 3-4 hours. I'm like checking my playlist or something, on my phone, and I look and there's this beautiful cuddly photo, and I'm like, I'm 9 kilometers away and I've already run 25 kilometers and I got to run back 9 more. And he's going to be sleeping and
Hold on. All while in my head is, guess he's going out for another run, a run that I can't do because my hips do not want to let me yet. And I'm wishing that I could train for an ultra. So, there were so many situations where we could actually like flip the coin. And it would have been really great to see the other person's side, to see, wow, we both wish that we could switch just a little bit and experience what the other person is.
100%. And hopefully you guys are having a bit of a laugh out there and you've had your own experiences like this. But, take our learning, take our struggles and apply them. Listen to them to the capacity that you want. But whatever you do, take action. Take action. Hold your relationship precious. Hold your dreams as if your life depended on it. Because at the end of the day, you deserve it. You deserve a world-class life. And part of that life is having a world-class relationship with yourself, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your family. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of recapped, 3 takeaways that new parents or, expected parents can just kind of digest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the top 3 takeaways that we wanted to kind of pull out of the woodworks and kind of lay out for you. 1, like I was talking about before, parallel your paths. You're going to be going, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and maybe your paths kind of deviate a little bit, but always have a radar for your partner's path, because once they start to separate and you get a little bit comfortable with that space, it can be actually quite difficult to get back on track and get back into a groove. So make your relationship a priority, even after, and especially after you go through something like what we're talking about. When you're planning to have a child and you go through these motions, you're going to want to get back to being each other's top priority. It does mean top priority over your child.
Yes, absolutely. Schedule your date nights. Mm-hmm. Plan ahead of time. Even if your date night has to be in the morning. We had plenty of breakfast date nights instead of, evening date nights when our son was first born, because that was a time that worked. He'd be asleep. We could have somebody that, watch him for a couple hours. We could zip out. Be creative. Don't just stop because you think you have to, right? And consequently, it might seem like the best thing to do. You know what? Let's just give it 3 months and then we'll pick it back up. Ooh. That's a very, very dangerous slope.
It can be.
Yeah, consider this. Nobody became morbidly obese overnight. Nobody got lung cancer from smoking cigarettes overnight. If you create a habit, it's very hard to undo. And if you have a very strong habit, you don't want to let that go. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to become morbidly obese if you consistently work out and eat well. And where I'm going with this is, if you're consistently communicating with your partner, if you're making sure that your relationship is top priority, if you're zipping out for date nights or even just a 30-minute walk in a park or something quiet or a coffee in the morning, you might have to get creative to do this, but you absolutely need to guard that.
Our number 2 takeaway for you today is have grace. You're 2 people going through a massive change, one of the biggest changes that you'll ever have in your life. And that means that there's 2 stories. There's always 2 things that are going on. Just like the story about me thinking John gets to go to work and he thinks I get to hold him all day and cuddle. There's 2 different experiences going on, and have some grace and respect that the other person is going through that. So communicate. Talk about your struggles. Talk about what you're feeling. Frame it in a way. There's so many of our episodes that we talk about framing a conversation about feelings and emotions, like effective fighting. Set it up for success by, telling them what you appreciate about them, but getting to the point and figuring out, I'm starting to resent you, or I'm starting to feel these things. I need to tell you because I love you.
That's beautiful. Number 3, build a moat around your household. Protect your family. Okay? Moats are so important because they keep outside invaders from storming the castle. So you want to be extremely careful with who you allow inside your castle. So this goes for like people's opinions, information, even products, food choices. Like there's going to be a million outside forces vying for your attention, vying for your dollars. And A lot of them are really, really, really well intentioned. But you are ultimately the parents. You are ultimately responsible. So make the decisions that are best for your household. Somebody tells you, I had great success with this and this and this. Maybe you listen to them because it's a super credible person. You know, they've got a great marriage. Their family is very successful. Their children are super respectful and polite and patient, and they've got great systems. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to take that opinion because I trust them. Versus, you know, Cousin Eddie, who is completely a mess and can't even take care of his own life and lives paycheck to paycheck and is bouncing job to job and blames all his problems on everybody else. And his children have unfortunately become kind of the byproduct of that. And you're seeing that manifest in them. Maybe you won't listen to that opinion with as much weight.
Is that Cousin Eddie from like Christmas Vacation?
Maybe. Maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay, so off topic. Thank you, everyone. You know, our top 3 takeaways: parallel your paths, making your relationship a priority, have grace for your partner, and build a moat around your household to really protect you guys, because ultimately your family and everything you've worked for is so important and yet so easily influenced by, you know, when you're going through this bit of a shaky time. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Stay connected.
Have a world-class day. We started this podcast because we are both extremely passionate about personal growth and development. Without fully understanding the benefits at the time, we actually began seeing a counselor at the beginning of our relationship to gain tools and learn more about ourselves. That eventually led to multi-day workshops, physical books, audiobooks, and as many other resources as we could get our hands on, because we saw such massive results. But we want to take you on a ride and share some of our most important lessons and discoveries that have made the biggest impact to us.
Whether you're single, looking for love, or have already found that special person, we aim to be the #1 resource to help you design your world-class relationship. For more information on topics and to join the conversation, please visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/worldclassrelationship. Join us next time for another episode of Intimacy Exposed.